Hello and welcome back, MC1 Gamer here, bringing you another video about Age of Sigmar. So today we're going to do another analysis of a legacy army and how well it fits into the current Age of Sigmar meta. And not necessarily a pure one this time. One of the things that I've been working on and doing, and I've been promoting this for a while, is that there's a lot of competitiveness with legacy scrolls, the carryover war scrolls that we saw initially at launch with when Age of Sigmar first came out, the PDFs, the army lists that were kind of throwbacks to 8th edition. And some of them are pretty dated. Some of them are overpowered. Some of them have needed some correction. And just to give you some depth on that, I'd say Battonians look really good, and certainly some of the best that we've seen for them in many years. But once we started seeing some of the newer armies, the new updated battle tomes with new allegiance abilities, once we started seeing that come out, I think Battonian kind of is starting to fade a little bit back further, just as a pure list, Battonian of itself. I've seen a lot of really good lists, and I've reported on them also, that incorporate Battonian war scrolls into Free People's war scrolls, combining with Empire and various other things. And certainly Tomb Kings are rock solid. With the current points, even before they correct, obviously, some of the points, which is rumored for GHB2 with the preview test points adjustments, let's put that aside because we don't know if that's going to be final or if that's going to be slightly changed, even if they incorporate some of it. And some of it we know is going to happen because it probably needs to be. But when we look at the points and the abilities that Tomb Kings have in Age of Sigmar, they're a top-notch army. They're a top-tier army. They've been incorporated into many other death lists to do very well. Recently in Adepticon, they were the top performing lists, among others like my own, which were in the top 10, 3, maybe 4 times. But half of those top tier lists were either pure Tomb Kings or combined Tomb Kings with generic death. But they just recently took the, I think it was the Masters over at SCGT, if I remember correctly, just in the last couple of weeks, Tomb Kings took the top spot for over the overall, and that's telling. Now but they're not. It's not exclusive to those armies. Just being able to stand in with the array of options we've had up until recently, but with the new battle tomes, things are changing. Disciples of Tzeentch are taking the meta by storm. We're going to see Blades of Khorne certainly reaching the top. Flesh Eater Courts has always been a very strong performer. We know that a lot of the Stormcast lists have performed very well historically since the General's Handbook, the GHB. Sylvaneth, again, but a lot of these are newer armies, newer lists, and have been updated like the Stormcast several times. How do some of the older lists perform? How do some of these legacy armies perform? This is what some people who either have bailed out of AOS, of Warhammer in general, when AOS was launched, and haven't come back, don't know if their armies are that they've had in their current collection are viable. Or people that have collections, never, left, Warhammer for a long time and are looking to come back because of Age of Sigmar. I've seen a lot of people over the last few years that have done that. And they have their old collections from the last several years or, even the last decade. And they want to see, if they can build armies while they look to maybe perhaps pad it with new stuff. And I completely appreciate that, because if you already have it in your collection before you start buying in, you might want to check out the game, learn how it plays, and then maybe try to incorporate that into some lists. Maybe a couple of extra buys that you might want to take advantage of, and maybe that stuff that can make that an older army that may not be up to snuff be that much better. And that's what I'm looking to do with the ogres. Now, I did this earlier in the week. I think it was maybe a week back with a list for the elves, for high elves, which was a combined list with a new updated Guardians of Dawnspire, I think it was, battalion that allowed the Swifthawk agents to combine with, I believe it was the Eldritch Council, if I remember correctly, for a very competitive, very mobile list. Maybe not a winner against some of the best lists out there, but with a good general it could be, but something that could be competitive and something that could be very effective. And I think it certainly got some responses. It was a list that I went over with Tom from Warhammer Weekly, and this is one that I came up with today, a Gutbuster centric list, but mainly a Destruction combined list, using some elements from a number of different lists. So they have, it's an element that's one of the elements is from Beastclaw Avalanche, one is from Moon Clan. We've seen a variant of this with the net list that was taking some of the games by storm, which was maxing out on Thunder Tusks, taking one Frostlord general on a Stonehorn, and then 3 units of Moon Clan with a Moon Clan Shaman and a bunch of Netters and a bunch of Fanatics. And there's answers for that. I mean, those Moon Clan are going to die pretty quick, and that's just then wasted points. But it's a nice way of looking at a combination of really powerful, monstrous type units and heroes, and taking some quantity units that can do a variety of different things. It's a tough list. It's not an easy out, but there are answers for it. Things like Kun and Ruck and other types of big shooty units, they're definitely going to have an impact and blow away various things and drop those capabilities. Battalion 1 drop lists. So that's this particular army that I'm looking to build. I was trying to build it around, initially a while back, around the Gutbusters battalion that was released with the early stage of Age of Sigmar. It's got points. It's in the original General's Handbook. Because of a wonky FAQ, initially there was an FAQ that said, yeah, if the keywords are different, ogres are still ogres. But then that was kind of overshadowed with the next FAQ, which basically said, it has to be exact. It has to be, bold or not bold. It took some of those legacy war scrolls and removed them. And I'm not really sure exactly why that happened. Maybe it's, GW just wanted to correct what they felt was a mistake. They don't want to give a lot of highlight to some of these older armies. It's unfortunate because there's certainly some still life left with units and models and kits that are still being sold. But there's gems out there even without that stuff. There's death lists that are very effective. There's plenty of order lists that are very effective. And we're still finding quite a few lists for chaos that are outrageously powerful. Some of which use, some of the updated, stuff, but some of which are just using what's already there that without new battle tomes for like Nurgle, for example, a great list that Tom had exhibited at Adepticon, which I'm going to be going over with him in the near term. But let's look at this list. What I wanted to do, and I put the Iron Guts up here because they're one of those Apex fantastic units that just never let you down. Well pointed, I think very effectively pointed, not undercosted or overcosted. Certainly have their disadvantages and their weaknesses, but when they dish well. So this is what I'm looking at for a list. I'm going to go over it, and I actually played a game with it, and I'm testing it out because I want to take it to an upcoming event. So this is the list that I'm talking about. So hopefully you can see this top to bottom in the screen, and I'll try to zoom in a little bit maybe. Let's see if I can do that. And we can see some of how this looks if you're not, challenged with your eyesight. Okay, so initially I have a Tyrant. He is the general. He's going to have Bellowing Tyrant and Battle Brew. Now, Battle Brew is one of those things where if you take the 2 swigs, you have a chance that something bad could happen. I don't know anybody who does that. You take it for yourself, and you get the +1 hit. You get your +1s for your own character. Bellowing Tyrant allows you to provide a +1 to a nearby ogre unit. So you're probably going to do it for your Gutbusters. I mean, you're not Gutbusters. Your Iron. Oh God. your let's see what they're called because I'm having a brain cramp. Your Iron Guts. Thank you. Oh God. All right, forgive me there. So your Iron Guts, they're really just incredibly offensive, but you might have other options depending on situations. But it's nice. Those are going to be your battle traits and at least what I'm going to pick, and your artifact. Now you're going to have the generic destruction Legion ability, which is if you're within 6 inches of a hero, you get a free die 6 move. That's very effective. This is a fast-moving army or a faster-moving army as a result. And Ogre's standard are 6-inch moves, which is not bad. All right, they're not cavalry fast. They're not 10 or 12 inches, but they'll move pretty quickly. And with the addition of that extra die 6 inches, that can be pretty good. I really considered for the command trait to take the one that allows you to get +2 to that, but it was only for the general. And that's within 6 inches. It's only going to be a couple of units. So I wanted to get something that's a little bit more effective in the game. And I think that a +1 to hit for a real good shit kicker unit like the Iron Guts could be much better. So that's what I opted for. You might change it. You might think of something different and decide that you're going to get more bang for your buck with something else. And that's fine too. But that's what I chose. So that's the general. He is very effective. Let's take a look at him. He's got, let's see, Tyrant. So if you don't know the Tyrant, he's got incredibly good statistics. I like taking him. This is a little bit fuzzy. There it is, cleared up. I like taking him with his Great Gouger, and he only gets the 3 attacks, but it's a 3-inch range. That's beautiful. You can stand behind, even a whole unit of bulls or Gutbusters, why can't I friggin' remember this unit's name? Anyway, you can stand by a whole unit of ogres and still within Iron Guts. There it is, and still be able to get. You could be in just pile in range and still get it, not even pile in, and not prevent somebody else from getting it because there might be a small unit, between you and them, and still just be able to get these attacks off. They're 3 up, -2 Ren, 3 wounds apiece, and if you roll a 6 on your wound, it's 6 wounds. That's pretty freaking great. He's got a pistol, a couple shots. He can ding it off in short range. That's not so bad. He gets this nice ability, roll a die 6. You get a variety of different things, from better armor class, an extra wound, different stuff. His command ability is not that great. I don't particularly like it because I don't think it comes into play very much, because you're going to have a situation where, if a unit's going to fail battle shock, they can take die 3 mortal wounds and they'll succeed. I'd just rather put inspiring presence on them. Why? It doesn't seem to make sense for me that you would do this. That's kind of silly. Plus, you're taking wounds off them, and furthermore, the units for the ogres is really kind of small. So by the time you lose enough to really have a chance to lose battle shock, the battle shock's going to most of the time remove the rest of the unit. So it's a waste. I'm not taking him as a general for that. As a matter of fact, you could probably do better to take something else as a general, depending on how you reorganize your list. But I took him because I wanted him to have the battle trait, and the command trait rather, and that's how I was going to effectively use him. And you could get him with 9 wounds, maybe even 10 wounds, depending on what the combinations are. If he rolls this and there's actually a command trait where you can give him an extra wound, so you're gonna have 10 wounds. That's pretty respectable, and he can do some damage. This guy can do damage. I like him better with that big weapon though, as a result. All right, so getting back to the combined list, the next thing I have here is the Butcher. All right, so I take him with the stump blades and the Great Cauldron. There's a couple ways you could take the Butcher. He's really good as just a caster. You need bodies as a caster, but he can fight. And this guy's got some interesting stuff that that might come into play. For example, and this thing is kind of slow. He's got 7 wounds, 5 up save. He's got a great spell, the Voracious Maw. If it hits, it could really decimate a unit. If you can roll lucky, it's basically another die 3 mortal wounds on a 4+, another die 3 wounds on a 4+. It's higher cost than an Arcane Bolt, but if it does work well, you could really do damage to another enemy unit. So he's good. He can do some work in hand to hand, which is not bad. And he's got this Great Cauldron where, on a roll of 1, you'll take some wounds, but everything else is good and really good. You can heal. You can select another unit within 14 inches and add 1 to their hit rolls, which is not bad. You can cause, all enemy units within 7 inches on a 4 or more to suffer die 3 mortal wounds. That's pretty good. This guy's going to be up there in the thick of it, and rolling at 5 or 6 can do some work. Could do some damage. So I really like the Butcher just as an option for a caster who can also get into melee and has a decent amount of wounds and won't easily get knocked off the board with just 1 shooting attack. It can happen, but then they're not shooting at something else. All right, so the next part of this is the Bruiser Standard Bearer, and he's essential because the Bruiser Standard Bearer has I just took an extra guy and gave him the some extra bits on the banner, and I'm going to model him up a little differently, maybe with a little extra armor or something, so he can stand out. But you can use you can use any of the extra bits from the kit, and I think he's very effective. And let's go get him and pull him up. Let's see, did I even get him? No, I didn't apparently. All right, well, he's got an option for so that he can give any ogres within range. I think it's like 18 inches. Within range, and he doesn't have to plant this either. On a roll of 6, when they try to wound, it causes a mortal wound in addition to any other wounds that they cause, and that's pretty good. That's multiple units. So you put him in range, maybe not even up close. You might want to get him reasonably close because he can still fight and he's effective and he's got a good amount of wounds and he can take an objective. It's a hero-based objective, but his real strength is enhancing the other units of ogres. And that's fantastic because they're going to get lots of attacks. In some cases, like regular ogre bulls, they're not going to get rends, and they don't do a multiple amount of wounds. I mean, the Iron Guts do really well. They do like 3 wounds each time they get through, which is phenomenal. Even Lead Belchers do pretty well, but the regular bulls, the regular ogres do not. They get multiple attacks, and that's it, and that's pretty good. But if they roll 6s on those wounds, that's an extra mortal wound, and that's fantastic. So this is a real enhancement, and this can have an impact on any ogre units. So I really like this. The next one is this Grot Shaman. I like him for a couple of reasons. He's cheap. I think he's 60 points. He's got 4 wounds. He's going to get knocked off the board pretty fast, pretty quickly, but I don't care about that. What I do care about is that he's got a nice extra spell here. I can go and I can use him to cast an Arcane Bolt, but he's got this nice spell, which is just like an extra enhanced Arcane Bolt. And I don't know why this is so slow focusing. That's kind of weird. But forgive me if you're seeing that. But this is the Curse of the Bad Moon. He can essentially do it at a higher rate, an 8. And if he casts it, does die 6 mortal wounds, and there's a chance that he could continue to do more. And of course, he can cast much more effectively because he gets +2 with his mushrooms. Only on a 1 is that going to be detrimental. There's a good chance he'll get that spell off. So if he's not in range, he could always Mystic Shield something. He's an extra caster, an extra unbinder, and he's cheap. He's cheap, so I like that. I like him a lot. So I took him, and you'll see why also in a second. So for the Battleline, I took 2 units of ogres. There are 3 in each of them, even though this picture shows 6. And that's an effective Battleline for 120 points. And I'm pretty happy with that because let's see if I can go pull this up. They're not bad. They do the job. And they have 4 wounds each, so you're going to have 12 wounds in the unit. 5 up save is nothing that respectable, but they have a bunch of interesting things. Their Icon Bearer, they can get a lookout sir warning with for the unit if there's any missiles that are coming in. If they charge, they can reroll wounds of 1, which is not bad. I give them Iron Fists because I like that reactive ability. If they roll a 6 or more, throw a Mystic Shield on this unit on a 5 or more now. All right, so you can get them to reflect back mortal wounds. They have that tribal banner, so they can reroll battle shocks. That's not such a bad deal. But they get 12 attacks between the 3 of them. So they're gonna do a 4-up, 3-up if you use the Bellowing Tyrant. And they do 2 damage each if they get any through, even though they don't have a rend. So that's not bad. So they're gonna do some work. Next, and you're going to have two units of those. And then I took a unit of Grots, the Moon Clan Grots. And I like these guys because there's a lot that you can do with them. You have Netters. You have the Icon Bearer. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit on these guys. I like them with the spears. I don't like them with the bows because I just, again, it's nice to be able to reach out and shoot, but the ability to hit is not going to be there. And there's a couple reasons why I'm taking this unit. It's 120 points, so it's the same thing as 3 of those Ogre Bulls, but there's a bunch of them. I like having the Netters. So you can have, I think, up to 3 Netters in a unit. And so once they're in combat, they're -1 to be hit, and you can combine this with something. I'll show you with the next unit that we'll talk about. But you can, they can add +1 to saves versus any shooting if you use the Bad Moon icon. Alternatively, you can use the Great Flag and just get +2 to their bravery, so their bravery will go up to a 6. I just like to put Inspiring Presence on them because the Tyrant, for example, is not going to use his special command ability. He's going to throw his Inspiring Presence to make this unit immune to Battle Shock, which means unless it gets wiped out, it's not going to have to lose any additional guys because it's got a really shitty bravery, and these guys are going to go get mowed down like wheat. So that's fine. And then they've got the Gong Basher, which adds 2 to their run. Nothing really to laugh at. The really key thing here is that these guys are going to screen some of your more important units. They're going to take the hits, and they're going to hide the Fanatics that you're going to buy. I got 2 Fanatics in this unit that are going to reach out as soon as somebody wants to try to charge them and, cock block that charge. Get in front, maybe perhaps do a little bit of damage, but allow me to do a follow-up with maybe another important unit. I like screening a Thunder Tusk with this, or maybe a unit of Iron Guts. Get those Fanatics out there and get in the way, and then allow a really important unit that these guys are kind of babysitting to follow up in the next turn for a charge, because you get 2 Fanatics that can jump out. They start an inch out in front, and then they go to get their charge before any of the charges are rolled. And unless they fail it with a double 1, that's they're gonna lock down that unit. So that's 2 units that are within range that are not going to get their charge off because you're going to be basically in base-to-base contact before they can do it. So it really kind of limits their. It's a nice counter move, and you can do this more effectively even with the 3 that you see in some of the lists that are out there. 3 of these 20-man units of Grots with 2 or 3 fanatics in each and a bunch of netters. It's a pretty effective but very cheap option, and it can really stymie your opponent. Now I like combining this with the Thunder Tusk. This is just a standard Thunder Tusk. Okay, well, this is the Huskguard on the Thunder Tusk. Let's see if we can find the other Thunder Tusk, because I'm not taking the Huskguard on the Thunder Tusk. I'm taking the regular standard Thunder Tusk. And the reason why is because he's a little bit cheaper. I take him with the Blood Vulture. And the reason why I like to have him screened by the Grots is because if you get into combat with him, typically the Grots are going to be nearby. And with 3 of the netters, you probably have 1 netter in the center and 1 netter on either side. The netters, again, incur a -1 penalty to hit on any units that are within range. Well, if you're in combat with the Thunder Tusk, you're -1 to hit because of its numbing chill. So that's a -2. That's going to keep those Thunder Tusks, that Thunder Tusk, I'm only taking 1 here. That's going to keep them a little bit alive when it comes to close combat. And Thunder Tusk is not, it's got 12 wounds, but he's easy to take down, especially by elite units or good shooting. Eventually you pluck off a few wounds, and his 6 mortal wound breath is not that scary. It becomes very much more manageable. But what I want to do is I want to keep him back, make it hard for combat to take him out, force you to choose to shoot at him as opposed to other things. And if you don't choose to shoot at him, he's going to punish you with an 18-inch blast from his breath that's going to be, if not 6 mortal wounds, maybe he's only been knocked down a few pegs, and he's got to die 6 mortal wounds, which should still be very effective. You can delete a character off the table in 1 turn. You could hugely diminish a very powerful individual unit that has lots of wounds or lots of bodies that you want to soften up. Still very effective, and he's respectable in combat. So I like to put those 2 guys together. So getting back to the next thing, we're going to go look at the Iron Blaster. I really like the Iron Blaster. I mean, it's not a gross amount of points. It's 160. For what you get, I think, is a pretty good combination. You get a fairly tough unit in close combat and some pretty good shooting capability. So let's go take a look at the Iron Guts. Not the Iron Guts, the Iron Blaster. And the Iron Blaster is, again, it's a fairly large model. It's a cool looking model too. It's going to definitely attract attention on the battlefield. And what it has is, it has the ability within 6 to 22 inches to shoot. It's not that bad. 4 up, 2 up, -2 rend, die 6 damage. Now you're only going to get 1 shot, and I've seen some lists where people take 2 of these, which I totally respect. But if you don't, it gets +1 to its damage that it does if you charged, and if you attack a unit that has 10 or more models, you can re-roll your to hit rolls. Let me see if that's right. Is it? Yes, you re-roll any failed to hit rolls, which means you're more likely to hit and do some good damage. And with that -2 rend, you're going to get through most armor saves. So definitely effective at range, but it actually does some really good work in combat. You know, it's let's see, 3 different attack profiles that, again, get +1 to all the damage that damage they go through if you charge, which is likely. I mean, you have a decent 7-inch move, and you can have the destruction bonus of die 6. It's a pretty good chance you're going to get this guy into combat. You want to, you really do. But he's able to get up close, do some work. He's got a good 4-up save, 9 wounds. 9 wounds is not bad. This thing's going to stand around for a little while. And it's going to be in combat. You know, you're talking about 1 attack that is 3 attacks each. 2 damage, 1 attack that does die 3 with a -1 rend. I mean, these things will add up. They are definitely going to contribute, and they have a shooting element. So that's certainly something that's respectable. I do like that Iron Blaster. So moving further down, I already talked about the Thunder Tusk Beast Rider that's here. You know, he's another big target. I tried to incorporate a giant into this list, but I wanted that Battle Standard Bearer. I think that Battle Standard Bearer made all of the ogres, the Iron Guts, and the Ogre Bulls, as well as the Iron Blaster, as well as all the characters, all more effective because all of their rolls of 6 or more. Again, if there's an extra plus, then I don't know where it's coming from. Maybe if you brought a More Crusher, the character More Crusher from the Iron Jaws in. But either way, you get that extra +1 from somewhere. That's fine. But otherwise, on a 6 with all the volume of attacks, that's a lot of bonus mortal wounds. So I thought he was more effective. All right, then we talk about the Iron Guts, and that's what I opened up with. I love the Iron Guts. They're expensive though. You get 3 for 220. That's rough. I think that's expensive for just 3 guys. Now, yes, you're getting 4 wounds apiece. That's 12 wounds. For what they do offensively, they're ridiculously good. They don't have a lot of defense. I mean, they're not going to defend against mortal wounds. They're not going to defend against waves of shooting. There's definitely ways to start to diminish these guys. So that's why you want to take them in groups of 6. Okay, that's 440 points. That's a big investment, but I think they're worth it because even if they get whittled down just a little bit, by the time they get whittled down, you're still going to be enough of these guys to get into combat. Plus, with a decent move of 6 and the extra die 6 in the hero phase, keep them next to one of your several characters. I'd probably keep them next to the Tyrant, or at the very least, the Battle Standard Bearer, so they can get that extra, again, with all their volumes of attacks. With the 6s, they're going to get some extra mortal wounds, but they don't even need it because look at that. That's 3 damage with a -1 rend. There's going to be 10 attacks in this group because you get 1 for the champion. And ultimately, each one that goes through is going to be 3 wounds. You can blend right through units with these guys. They really do the work. They've got a decent save. It's a little better at 4 up, so you can throw up a Mystic Shield on them. You're now at a 3 up, or if they're in terrain, which is not impossible because there's not a lot of models in the unit. They're big. They're larger bases. I got mine on 50 mils. They came on 40 millimeter squares in 8th edition, but all of the Beast Claw Raiders that are of the similar size are on 50 mil rounds. So I made them on 50 mil rounds. Seems appropriate. I mean, I initially put them on 40 mil, but I think that they look actually better on 50 mil, and I think that what you're looking at here in the picture is a 50 mil. In any case, the idea here is that you get these guys up close and you do some damage, and they've got a 2-inch range, so you can put them behind even the Grots, and they'll still be able to strike. As a matter of fact, you can put them behind the Grots and put the Tyrant behind, squeeze between 2 of them, maybe right up against the indent. That'd be pretty good, reaching all over, and people are only going to mostly be able to attack the Grots, and that's it. And these guys are going to be able to do some work, so you can screen them pretty easily. I like them, and I like that there's 6 of them. All right, so then we have some Lead Belchers. Now, Lead Belchers, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I like Lead Belchers because it gives you another shooting element, and there's a lot of shooting in this army. A lot of the characters have pistols at 12 inches, which 1 or 2 shots, not bad. Die 3 with a -1 rend, but hey, that'll add up, especially when you get close. And then you have the Iron Blaster and the Thunder Tusk. But now we got these Lead Belchers here. And when they get in close, and they will, because they can fight. They can fight. They get a -1 rend on all their abilities, and they do 2 damage each. That's not bad. That's better than the Bulls. But the thing is when they get within 12 inches, if they don't move, they do die 6 attacks each. If they move, they do die 3. Now, it's only if they move in the movement phase. So I need to make this very clear. If they move within the hero phase with the destruction special ability, the die 6 move, it doesn't count. They still can get their die 6 attacks. If they move then in the movement phase, that's when they only are a die 3. So you got to read that because that's a big. As long as no enemy models are within 3 inches, so that's another caveat, and it did not move in the movement phase of the same turn. Not the hero phase special destruction, the Legion ability. In the movement phase, its Lead Belcher guns can make die 6 attacks in the shooting phase instead of die 3. So that's a pretty big distinction. You couldn't get that free die 6 move in the hero phase if there's a hero nearby. Move up a little bit, get within 12 inches, not move in the regular movement phase, and blast away. And even though there's only 3 guys typically in this, you could take them as 6. I'm taking them as 3. Even though there's only 3 for the match play format, that's die 6 each, and that's not bad. That adds up. And yeah, they do only 1 wound, but they're -1 rend. They're going to add up. It's definitely not bad. And then they can still charge. All right. So even if they get charged, they're going to be able to do some work. So I kind of like them, and their points are not too bad considering. All right, we already talked about the Grot Fanatics, but I want to go over those just one more time, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this up. So the Grot Fanatics, if you don't know, they've got that special ability to pop out in the midst of right before a charge is declared. I like using, there's 2 ways you can use them. You can use them offensively. So in your turn, you can pop them out, and they'll immediately be able to go first if you want. Now, they're individuals. They're not one unit. So you're buying them individually. So if you only have 1 in the unit, you maybe want the guy to go first. I think they're really good as a defensive measure, waiting till your opponent tries to charge and then kind of blocking their charge, stopping their charge. But if doing so, you always run the risk, depending if there's other combats that are also happening, that your opponent, because if it's in their combat phase, they're going to pick what goes first, and they might pick the unit that just kills the Fanatics. But it's still beneficial because it'll stop them in their tracks. They'll kill the Fanatic, but they won't kill the unit that maybe you're trying to screen, which might be the Grot, the Moon Clan Grots that are screening something even more valuable. So I think it's more effective. It's more effective to use them defensively, but I've seen them used offensively, where somebody throws them out there and just gets those die 6 attacks, -2 rend, die 3 damage. You really, really can hurt some. You roll 4 or 6 on the number of attacks. Maybe you get 3 or 4 in. With that -2 rend, most of them are going to get through, and those die 3 wounds are going to add, each a piece are going to add up. So I really like the Grot Fanatics. I think having at least one of them in that Moon Clan Grot unit is important. I use 2, but this is how I built up this list. This is a 2,000 point list, and I've already played one game with it, and it was a very effective and very positive experience. And I liked the way they played. They were fast moving. They had a little element of shooting, a little element of magic. They were resilient. I took wounds, I took casualties, but I dished out certainly more, but certainly a good amount that I felt that I was able to stand in there with against the other armies. And I'm going to go take this 2-8 event coming up this coming weekend, and we'll see how it turns out. I'm trying something new, taking a little bit of a break from Death, and I don't want to return to Sylvaneth till I finish that army, and I have some stuff that I want to add to that army, and a couple other things that I kind of have in the queue, but I want to put these guys up there. This is actually the army that I kind of built up for my son, Ethan, to play with. And I have the Beast Claw that I've been building out, and I just don't have those guys finished to where I can put them on the table yet. So then we're going to screw around with this for a little while. So we'll see how it turns out. Let me know what your thoughts are, if you have any input or feedback, and if you have any lists that you would like to explore, or if any suggestions that, to see if you want to do a build me a list. That's another series that I have where people send me their collections and they ask me to build them an effective list. I'll be happy to do that. And thanks for tuning in, and have a great day, everybody.